A garden can give you pleasure all year round. Design, texture, variety, and color all contribute. In this program, we will show you the role of trees and shrubs, but we will concentrate on perennials, suggesting some of the many varieties and giving you tips necessary for success. We will move from spring through summer to fall to winter. In early spring, gardeners look eagerly for signs of life in the ground. Spring is a time of blossoms. A large variety of trees and shrubs bloom in this area. We will suggest just a few of them. Once established, most require little care except for some pruning and fertilizing. One of the first to appear is the star magnolia. Covered in white blossoms, it's breathtaking. If there are no hard rains, this beautiful tree will put on its show for at least 2 weeks. By then, other plants are beginning to reveal their magnificence. The bright gold of forsythia is everywhere in this area. As you see in the upper right, weeping cherries begin to present their filmy flowers. The PJMs, among the first rhododendrons of the season, add more color to the scene. Here's a close-up of the PJM rhododendron, beautiful in the spring. Japanese maples are dressed in soft pastels, unlike their brilliant autumn colors. Later, the yellow flowers of Caria japonica command attention. Easy to grow but slow, the japonica is tolerant of poor soil, tolerates drought, and grows into a tall hedge like this. This group is about 15 years old, planted from a few divisions of another plant. May brings the blossoms of trees, such as this Kwanzaa cherry. Cut a few of these beauties for your indoors. As we move toward summer, the dependable old-fashioned lilacs send their fragrance. Lilacs are helped by a good pruning every few years. These plants are at least 40 years old. An armload of these can make a beautiful bouquet in your house, as well as adding a beautiful fragrance. A later rhododendron is this white chinoise. This rhododendron requires some attention. Leaves may rust, disease may be evident. Check with your local nursery or the Cornell Cooperative Extension for help with any of these trees and shrubs. Here's a close-up of the delicate blossom, which shows that it's worth the effort. Another common tree in this area is this Shasta viburnum. And here is a close-up of its beautiful blossoms. Adding to the show in the spring are the azaleas, which are available in a huge variety of sizes and colors. This one is more than 30 years old, performs faithfully with little care, and keeps its leaves all winter. There are many others. Talk with your friends, look in the nurseries and garden catalogs for ideas for your garden. Now let's talk about perennials. Crocus and snowdrops appear very early, as does this hellebore, commonly called a Christmas rose. These lovely flowers arrive in March and continue to bloom for many weeks. The hellebores need mulch in the winter. The leaves stay green all year long, adding to the drama in the winter. It blooms late winter, very early spring, likes a moist, well-drained soil, and can be grown in sun or partial shade. Almost everyone plants a few daffodils. The deer will leave them alone, gobbling up the tulips instead. We have not tried to deal with the deer problem in this program. It's a subject for consideration in itself. With daffodils, plant in groups early in the fall, fertilize them after flowering, let the plant die down naturally. If the flowers decrease, dig up early in the summer and replant in a rich organic soil. Pulmonaria is also part of the early spring show. There are many varieties. This one is called Mrs. Moon. After the pink and blue trumpet flowers disappear, the spotted leaves provide interest in the garden all summer long. With the pulmonaria, you find a shade-loving ground cover, Slow spreading. It likes a rich, moist soil. It does need moisture. There are now many varieties, many shapes of leaves and different kinds of flowers. Jacob's Ladder is also an early perennial to bloom. It's covered in blue blossoms. It's a favorite of many gardeners. It transplants easily and requires very little care. It likes shade and will tolerate some sun. It grows about 12 inches high and 18 inches across. After the bloom, cut the plant down to basal foliage for better attractiveness. Dividing is probably not necessary. The ubiquitous forget-me-nots never fail the gardener. Once present, the seeds are carried to a variety of locations in the garden. Here they're shown with a few tulips. The forget-me-nots are small blue or white flowers. They're self-seeding. They appear in early spring in a variety of locations in the garden. They're invasive but easily removed. The variety of tulips these days is astonishing. Here's a hybrid which actually looks like a small peony and blooms for many, many weeks. Tulips should be planted in the fall, following directions about the depth. Plant them in groups, and when the blooms look spent, remove them. Iris, although they require a bit of attention, give a grand show. These purple and white iris were shared by a friend for my garden. Iris bloom from May to June. After flowering, cut the flower stalk off down to the foliage. If the foliage looks unattractive, cut it down to 3 or 4 inches. It grows 2 to 3 feet high. It likes sun, and unlike most perennials, you divide in the summer after it blooms. Late May, early June brings the goat's beard. Known as a shade plant, the goat's beard can thrive in the sun. This plant was divided from one in the shade and has grown larger than its mother. The goat's beard grows tall, 4 to 6 feet. It grows in sun or shade, but mostly it likes shade. Tolerates poor soil, tree root competition. Dividing is quite difficult, but unnecessary if planted in sufficient space in the back of the bed. Here is a close-up of the beautiful goat's beard. Another remarkable perennial which blooms early to late is the Cynthranthus rubra, commonly known as red valerian. If dead-headed, this plant can literally give some flowers from June to September. It needs some sun and a well-drained soil. It grows to about 2 feet high. If dead-headed, as I said, it will bloom from June to fall, neutral to alkaline soil. Here are the two plants together. Note the big green patch on the left, lower left. That will soon be bright yellow. Lamb's ear provides good edging around a lawn or other area. This plant does produce a crimson flower, but the real interest is in the soft, velvety leaf. It's a terrific edging plant with outstanding silver foliage. Blooms are of less importance. It needs good drainage, and it will tolerate some shade. There are many ways to provide color in the garden. Leaves often can be as important as flowers. Here's an example. This heuchera is called plum pudding. The common name for heuchera is coral bells. The leaves remain purple all summer. The flowers are insignificant on this plant. It likes full sun to partial shade, grows about 12 inches high, and prefers some sun. The beautiful blue bellflower, an early summer favorite. If dead-headed carefully, it can bloom for many, many weeks. It grows about 18 inches to 2 feet high. Carefully dead-headed. Don't remove the new buds. It likes full sun to part shade and may need some staking. Roses, to grow or not to grow. In the beginning, I was fearful of trying to grow a rose. There were problems in pruning. There was black spot and so forth. An English friend convinced me to stop worrying and start growing. So I chose these Graham Thomas roses by David Austin. With roses, you prune early in the spring, you feed once a month until August, mulch them heavily in the winter, and rebloom will occur during the season. I've had roses as late as October. Here's a close-up of these beautiful Graham Thomas roses. They do have a touch of pink. And yes, when I go on vacation, I often return to find black spot. I remove and destroy damaged leaves and spray with water and baking soda. They look sad for a while, but then they recover. The roses are often the last flower to disappear in the fall. And here are the Graham Thomas roses and the blue bellflowers together. Here's another David Austin rose, the Heritage, a pink beauty, which provides pink blossoms profusely in the summer. And let's not forget another pleasure from the garden, fragrance, from the lilacs to the roses to the lilies. Two very hardy perennials are Tradescantia, spiderwort, and the geranium sanguineum. Tradescantia can be lovely, but is not a favorite of mine, although I have a friend who just loves it. Individual flowers last only one day, and they're open in the daytime only. It's somewhat invasive, should be divided every 2 to 3 years, cut back after blooming is finished. Here's a close-up of the Tradescantia, the spiderwort. Geranium sanguineum is a wonderful plant, tough, long-lived, sun-loving. It grows to about 6 to 8 inches high, tolerates drought. It usually doesn't require division. It's low maintenance and can be used as a ground cover. And here's a close-up of the geranium sanguineum in bloom. Peonies, one of the most dramatically beautiful of all perennials. The huge flowers takes one's breath away. 2 weeks is probably the most one can expect for one plant to bloom. Hard rains can diminish that time, but what can one say? Most gardeners can't live without them. Peonies prefer full sun. You need to fertilize in the spring. Deep, rich, well-draining alkaline soil is best. Staking is necessary. Use peony rings. Don't prune until September, and don't compost the dead leaves. Here's a close-up of the peonies. Tiny pink flowers of Scabiosa, commonly known as pincushion flower, enhance the garden all summer. Necessary deadheading can be tedious. Look carefully again to be sure you're not removing a new bud instead of a spent flower. It likes full sun or light shade, grows about 12 inches high. If you keep deadheading, you'll prolong the bloom. Organic fertile soil is best. Well-draining soil is important, and they tend to like a soil that is more toward the alkaline. Related to the Scabiosa is the Nautica macedonica. Here it's shown with some petunias in the middle of the summer. Again, careful deadheading is necessary for a long summer bloom. It needs full sun, but it can tolerate some light shade. Dividing is seldom necessary, and it does provide flowers many months during the summer. Now we have moved a few weeks later to the goat's beard bed. The yellow sundrops on Ethera are making their visit as the goat's beard blossoms fade. The sundrops are a very easy plant to grow, tolerant of poor, dry soil. They require little care. They're invasive, but they can be easily removed. Shear back after flowering to a low green rosette. Here's a close-up of the sundrops in full bloom. There are both perennials and annuals in the dianthus family. I have found that the biennials give more bloom. These colorful, low-growing masses of flowers certainly add their share to any garden's beauty. The dianthus prefers full sun for profusive bloom. With careful deadheading, it will rebloom through the summer. They grow 10 inches tall, good for the front of the bed, and you can find many varieties of them in the nurseries, particularly the biennials. Lupin. Here's a plant I cannot resist, even though it's difficult to maintain in the U.S. In Norway, these plants grow in profusion in fields and along the roads, a spread of pinks and creams and blue shades. They like cooler, damper climates. Often they don't return the next spring. Still, I can't resist. I did have one plant which reappeared for 5 seasons. The lupin is a high-maintenance, short-lived perennial, requires rich, high organic soil, performs best in cool temperatures, and afternoon shade is best for this area. Here's a longtime favorite of gardeners, the dependable Achillea, yarrow. It comes in a variety of colors from orange red to creamy whites and pinks. It's usually trouble-free, will tolerate drought, it likes full sun, and does require dividing every 2 or 3 years to keep it healthy. Here's a close-up of the beautiful yarrow blossom. And here's one of yarrow, which is the pink fading in the middle with a lot of annuals together in the midsummer garden. Daisies, a mainstay in any garden, from the common marguerites, which just show up around the garden and perform beautifully and require nothing, to the more delicate Shastas you see here. Shasta daisies require sun. They grow to about 1 foot, blooming in late July or early July. Other varieties include the Montauk and Alaskan daisies, which are taller, and of course the common marguerites. Here's a bed of the Alaskan daisies, which, as I said, grow to about 2 to 3 feet tall. I talked about shrubs earlier, but didn't mention the Anthony waterer spirea. It blooms later and into July. Magnificent pink. With deadheading, sporadic bloom will occur throughout the season. Here's the Anthony waterer spirea with oriental lilies. Lilies, another plant to provide color and fragrance in midsummer. There are many varieties. They take little care, plant according to directions with compost or humus. They like full sun at the top and perhaps cooler feet. A ground cover such as periwinkle will help. Plant different varieties and sizes and you'll have bloom from June to August. The larger plants will require staking. Here's a summer bed of a variety of annuals and perennials. On the left, back by the pot, you will see a stilby. And here's a close-up of a stilby, a shade plant that can tolerate sun if there's plenty of moisture. The dead blossoms can be left for fall and winter interest. The stilbies are shade lovers but will grow in the sun if they're kept moist. Year-round mulch will help retain the moisture. Plant at the front of the border. They do require division after 3 years to help them keep vigorous. Two big summer showstoppers are the purple coneflower echinacea and the Filipendula venusta, commonly known as meadowsweet. The echinacea you'll see growing in profusion on the left, and back by the fence in the middle are the venusta filipendula. The filipendula gives you fluffy pink flowers, grows high, 4 to 6 feet, which means it needs staking. It likes moist, high organic soil. It is tolerant of light shade. It's a long-lived perennial that spreads somewhat. Here's a close-up of the beautiful filmy blossoms of the filipendula. Echinacea, purple coneflower, blooms July into September, a very dependable perennial. Grows 2 to 4 feet high, likes full sun. It's easy to grow. It's drought resistant. It seldom needs dividing. These echinacea have been growing in this spot for about 30 years. Now here we see the echinacea with another perennial, the balloon flowers. The balloon flowers like full sun, 2 to 3 feet high they grow. Removing dead flowers will prolong the bloom. They have a late dormancy, so be careful not to remove any new plants when you're weeding out in the spring. They rarely need dividing. Here's a more close-up of the balloon flower with lots of buds ready to open. Echinops, globe thistle, and monarda, again, make a great combination and are two very easy perennials to grow. The globe thistle grows 3 to 4 feet high, has round blue flower heads with rough spiny leaves. It's a very hardy, pest-resistant, drought-tolerant perennial. It does not need dividing for many years. You see many of them blooming here. These all came from one plant given to me by a friend, and they've spread over the years. The monarda bee balm is in almost everyone's garden in different varieties and colors. It's an easy-to-grow perennial. It grows 2 to 4 feet high. It's invasive, but it is easily removed. Deadheading will prolong the bloom. It will bloom in July and August. Here's a variety of monarda shown to the left and right, and on the center middle you see a little shrub-like plant. That is a peony after bloom, so it does make a nice green addition in the later summer garden after it's finished blooming. Here we see Monarda growing with another interesting perennial, Gateway eupatorium, which is in the tall middle left of the photograph. In the front you see some pink heather. The eupatorium gateway grows very tall, 5 to 6 feet, which means it may need some staking. It likes full sun, blooms July, September. Once established, the plants are very tough. Here it is a close-up growing high in a garden. Must be at least 6 feet high there. And the show goes on. Here are Malva and another Filipendula. Here's a close-up of the Malva. Malva's many blossoms of icy pink make it a must in the garden. Each plant provides dozens of blossoms, and deadheading can prolong the season. Malva requires some sun. It's short-lived, but it self-seeds around the garden. One grew up in a mock orange plant in my garden. It grows 2 to 3 feet high. Deadheading will prolong the bloom and give it a well-drained soil if possible. Here's a close-up of the beautiful icy pink Malva blossom. The Filipendula, this one has a shorter bloom season, perhaps 2 to 3 weeks. It likes sun but will tolerate a little shade. Grows 3 to 4 feet high. It likes moist organic soil. And here's a close-up of the beautiful blossom as it blooms. Here's one I have trouble pronouncing, Hutenia. It's also somewhat difficult to contain, but for a ground cover, it does offer such a variety of colors from pink to green to cream that it's almost irresistible, but tough to deal with. It's an invasive ground cover, spreads by underground root-like stems. The colors change from green to fuchsia to scarlet to cream and gold. Shade is prevalent in many gardens in this area. It provides a challenge which can have amazing result. When one thinks of size and shape and texture and the many shades of green, then we begin to appreciate shade. Here you see in the background the goat's beard, but in the front a variety of hosta. It's probably the most popular shade plant. It will tolerate some sun. It's a border plant, although some grow as high as 3 feet if they're left to grow over many years. Deer and slugs love hostas. It's an easy plant to grow, divide if it's necessary to control the size. Here's a plant with a hosta, with impatiens, and some ferns and some Solomon seal. This bed gets only maybe 1 hour of sun a day or less, so it shows you what a variety of interest you can have in the shade. Here's a hosta that does grow in the sun. It's called Summon Substance, and you see it in its blooming in August. This beautiful daylily also lives in front of a hosta. There are huge varieties of daylilies. Here's a soft yellow one, a frosty lady, and an orange one. Even though I dislike orange, I couldn't resist this one. Daylilies grow in many colors. They're very easy to grow. They provide many weeks of bloom, and they can be divided. As we move toward the end of summer, the dependable Cleome begins its long blooming period. Cleome is actually an annual, but is self-seeding, and once in your garden, you'll always have them. Watch for these plants early in your summer garden. Don't mistake for weeds and pull them out, because they will give you a tremendous amount of color in the late summer garden when other things are beginning to die down. It's an annual which reseeds, deadheading down to the lateral bulb, produces repeated new blossoms through the late July, August, September. It tolerates poor soil conditions, really doesn't need any care except deadheading. And here is a close-up. If you look carefully, you'll see the seed pods forming around the Cleome. That is what falls off during the fall season and brings you the new plants for the coming year. Hydrangeas. Everybody has a few hydrangeas in their garden. They grow in a tremendous range of sizes and shapes and colors. I particularly like this one probably because of the soil conditions. It turned out to be blue and pink and mauve and added a lot of fun and color to the garden. Hydrangeas are shade tolerant, but they need much moisture. Some are variegated. Pruning techniques will vary with the variety, so before you start to prune your hydrangea, be sure you know what variety you have and how to plume it. Mulch them in the winter. Fall wouldn't be complete without the autumn joy sedum, shown here with blue Victoria salvia, which is an annual. It's a great fall, summer perennial. Pink blossoms continue to late fall. It needs sun and well-draining soil. It will start to flop over and need dividing every 3 or 4 years. You divide it in the spring. The pink flowers change to rust and can be left through the winter. This Fricardi monk aster is the longest blooming aster available, providing deep color for several months. Water it regularly during bloom. It grows in full sun 3 feet high, blooms July to October, does not require deadheading, very easy plant, mulch in the late fall. It is a tender perennial and often does not survive the winter, but when it does, you're very lucky. Here it is shown with a variety of annuals, and on the top middle left you'll see a purple leaf plant called Strobilanthe Persian Shield, which is an annual which provides no flowers but beautiful, beautiful purple leaves during the late fall. Annuals add a great deal to the summer. Here you see coleus with blue Victoria salvia in front of some phlox. Petunias and impatiens are mainstays. A mixture of annuals and perennials is a secret to color in the garden all summer. For example, annuals need to maintain high color during the summer months, come in a variety of colors and many shades. Snapdragons are dramatic, and here's a close-up of a beautiful snapdragon. Here are a variety of annuals and perennials together, which show give a lovely mixture for the summer. And another mixture of annuals and perennials for your summer show. There are petunias in the front, daisies, a rose in the back, and so on. Phlox, a long-time favorite. Here are the whites, the Davids, and a pink, which actually seemed to have hybridized from pink and lilac phlox, which I had in the garden. I'm quite sure I did not plant this color. Avoid wet conditions with phlox. They prefer rich, high organic soil. They need good air circulation to avoid mildew. Divide them every 3 years to keep them healthy. They grow 3 to 4 feet high in the full sun. Here's a close-up of a beautiful phlox. Boltonia, one of the last perennials to bloom in the fall, almost into September. Masses of small daisy flowers on a plant about 4 feet high. Also note in this plant you'll see some cleome, which do need to be deadheaded down to the lateral bulb, and then they'll bloom again. When you see those tall-looking stalks, it knows that they need to be deadheaded in order to give you more bloom later in the season. Boltonia grows about 4 feet high, 3 feet wide. It blooms in September, full sun to part shade. Divide it every 3 or 4 years. Perennial ageratum and chelum mean that your September garden will be not without blossoms. Here we see the perennial ageratum with some cosmos, which is an annual. Ageratum grows 2 to 3 feet tall. It's lovely with chelum, the turtle head. It's very invasive but easy to remove. Some people really don't tolerate it in their garden because it is so terribly invasive and it will spread to other parts of your garden. It grows in any kind of soil or moisture conditions. And here's the chelum, which is another addition and beautiful with the ageratum in the fall. It's a very hardy plant, blooms August into September, pink turtle-shaped flowers. It likes a moist, shady location and grows 3 feet high. And finally, the dahlias, which compete with the peonies and the roses for honor as the most beautiful flower of all during the summer. Here's a Thomas Edison dahlia shown with an elephant's ear, which is an annual and will not return the next summer. The dahlias like rich, well-draining soil. Some flowers spread about 10 inches across. Staking will be necessary. Store the tubers in peat moss in a cold place during winter. Plant in late spring. It blooms late August into September, but with the first frost, it simply disappears. Here are some dahlias in bloom in late summer. And the delphinium, an early to midsummer bloomer. Why show it here? Because this plant was blooming in November last year. The garden always surprises. Delphiniums are also a tender perennial and often do not return in the garden. They grow about 2 to 4 feet tall. They need staking, beautiful blossoms. They will rebloom. They prefer alkaline conditions with a high organic moist soil. And fall, when the flowers stop blooming, trees and shrubs again provide reds, golds, and oranges. Here's the cotinus, which will lose its leaves later, but all through summer and into the fall, it provides beautiful purple leaves. The common name is smoke bush. Here's the azalea you saw in full red bloom earlier. It's turned this color in the fall and will turn to a sort of a green color and stay green all winter. Here's the star magnolia, which you saw blooming white, is turned to gold in the fall, with the euonymus in the background and some ornamental grass. And here's the burning bush, the euonymus. This is one of the most invasive plants of Westchester, and it's very difficult to contain. So be careful if you have it in your garden, because it does spread very easily, but it makes a beautiful shrub in the late fall. This was probably October. And the Japanese maples, which were soft pastels in the springs, have now turned to yellow and orange. And with the weeping hemlock or the ornamental grass, the dwarf ones, which present their plumes in the fall. And finally, winter. The ornamental grass looks beautiful in the snow. And the Siberica, Cornus Siberica, provides the red stalks against the hedge and against the snow, giving you beauty in the summer as well. And finally, we go into winter, where snow on your shrubs and trees in the winter are absolutely stunningly beautiful, reminding us that the dark days are not without their beauty. We have shown a number of trees, shrubs, and flowers which are available. Your nurseries will carry many others. For instance, we haven't shown the Andromeda, which is a very popular shrub in this area. Good luck with your own gardening. Read catalogs, visit nurseries, ask your gardening friends for plants. Most gardens are filled with plants from friends. I have a Siberian iris, which came from a friend who is now dead. Each year, that plant is a reminder of our friendship. I see a hosta, which came from one friend, a daisy from another, a monarda from a third. During the years of drought, most perennials will survive with very little water. I use only a Jerry Baker organic mix to spray against insects. We never water the lawn. Sometimes it gets very brown, but it recovers. We compost all our vegetable waste, and our tree leaves are used in the garden as well. But care for the environment is another subject for another day. Good luck with your gardening, and thanks for watching.
We're back again with another installment of the Pleasantville Rotary Report. We're here actually with a very famous, maybe infamous, but really famous children's book author and illustrator, Rebecca Embry. And we're here also with another Rotarian, actually a recent Rotarian, right, but a very...
old Rotarian?
No, I wouldn't say... He's dug right in. Charlie Helmrich. Now, Charlie is the Senior Business Development Officer at Mahopac National Bank. That's a very important title.
Yes, it is.
So tell us a little bit, I mean, Rotary...
We're all important.
Rotary really has kind of embraced literacy as one of our, you know, kind of pet projects. And Mahopac National has stepped up to the plate to partner with Pleasantville Rotary on this literacy program. And now, how did you get involved with that?
Well, one of the things that's wonderful about our bank is we're very community oriented. and we like to look out ways that we can give back to the community. And what I thought would be a wonderful thing is to work through the Rotaries, because I don't think that people realize the benefit the Rotaries really do out there. And I thought, what a wonderful thing if we go out, go to various Rotaries and see how they were trying to approach the literacy issues and problems, and then see how we could support them. Specifically with the Pleasantville Rotary, you had all wanted to do things for bilingual needs, because we really do have an issue here in Mount Kisco. And how we found Rebecca Emberley was that we had gone to the local library to find what would be quality bilingual books, and without hesitation, your books were given to us to use. And so that was the first thing that we did, and we were very pleased with the 3 books: My Toys, My Animals, and My Clothes.
But you have to say it in Spanish now, Charlie.
No, that's on the next show.
Now, how did you, Rebecca, how did you come to write bilingual children's books?
It was quite some time ago, because my daughter's 20 now. She was in preschool. I was living in Boulder, Colorado, and she was in a preschool at a local community college where they had a big learning program. And they had a very mixed classroom. There were a lot of migrant workers, both Korean and Mexican. And there were a couple of handicapped kids, severely handicapped kids in her class. And because it was a learning environment, it was a larger sort of preschool thing than would normally. And you could observe through big windows when you went to pick up your child. And one day I was there watching, and it just occurred to me, they were probably about 3 and 4, however old you are, about the same age that the kids are going to be getting these books. And they're in there, and they're just going at it. They do not speak the same language. Some of the kids, there was one girl who was immobile. She was in a wheelchair and had no movement at all. There were kids speaking Spanish and Korean and English, and they were having a ball. They were in there running around
Like kids do.
Easily communicating. And I just thought it might be cool to, I was already doing children's books, to do something in more than one language to sort of promote the idea that an animal is an animal no matter what word you're using. And so they weren't necessarily developed to teach anyone either Spanish or English. I had originally wanted them in 3 languages, and the publisher went down to 2, and that's how that got started. And it just seemed like, why not? It's a good, it's a good idea to sort of.
It works.
It does.
And it works for our program because we had looked into initially going to Northern Westchester Hospital and, you know, giving books. I think even before we saw your books, just giving books to mothers who would come in, either who just came out of the maternity ward or who brought in small children, because we felt that if we can get the mothers to read to the children, that literacy then would flourish, because the child has learned to, you know, at least learn the importance and the fun of having somebody read to you and to read to yourself. And then obviously we discovered these books, and tomorrow we're going to visit actually 3 sites to deliver the books. Northern Westchester Hospital Maternity Ward, also the Open Door Medical Center up in Mount Kisco, which is really something that's done wonders for the, not only for the Hispanic population, but even for seniors who can't afford health care, inoculations, and that type of thing. They've really done a great job. In fact, I was down in Rye, which is a little further down the county, yesterday. I gave a little talk in front of a group down there, and they're opening up a branch in Rye of the Open Door, which is a wonderful thing. It's a clinic.
Very successful.
You know, yeah, it's not really for emergencies, but it's more for a clinic thing where you can bring your kids or yourself in and get everything from inoculations to you know, minor health care, checkups, and that type of thing. And then we're also going to the Neighbors Link, which is another Mount Kisco organization where they kind of are I guess a catch-all for the minority population up in Mount Kisco, where people can come in and get all different things, from everything from job training, English as a second language class, referrals to different things. So those 3 organizations are actually where we're going to go tomorrow and give these books. We've got, I think, 150 sets of these books to give out tomorrow.
450 books, from
which is
what I
great.
understand. It does work. I've done some work with a foundation in New England called Reach Out and Read, and they did the same thing that you're doing, and I went in to do something with them. They bought a large amount of books, and they give books at healthy doctor's visits, and it goes home with the parent and the child, and every child gets a book, and they've been doing this for 10, 15 years, and it definitely works to promote literacy, to distribute it this way through hospitals and
Well, I think we worked very hard
foundations.
trying to find locations where we'd really be meeting the population and the need.
And the need, exactly.
Right. And Rebecca's also going to be at the library.
I am. I'm going to be signing books at the library to help the library sale. I understand you guys are raising money to build a new library.
Yeah, we're always raising money.
Yeah.
That's part of the job.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, people, if you don't know, I'm a chef. I own my own restaurant, and people always ask me, you know, where'd you get your start? What happened? You know, why'd you get interested? And I always say, well, I learned everything at my mother's knee. But it sounds like you learned a lot of things at your father's studio.
I did. I come from a family of illustrators. My parents met in art school. My mother was a fashion design major, and my father was doing illustration, and that's where they met. And my father is an author and illustrator. And my brother, Michael, is also, my father would be Ed, my brother would be Michael. They're also authors and illustrators. And I have a daughter who's a musician and an actress. And so it's interesting. I did, in fact, I never went to art school. My parents did. My father they both went to Mass Art, and he went to Rhode Island School of Design, but neither my brother nor I went to college. I wasn't much of a...
Homeschooled.
I went to high school, but yeah, he taught us everything. I've done everything from build a sailboat to paint with oils and draw, so it paid off eventually.
Now all that kind of works into this Adventure Girls, which is another obviously different thing than the bilingual book.
Adventure Girls is a series. I started a publishing company to produce this series. This is the first book in a series of hopefully 5 for girls 8 to 12 to sort of encourage them to be self-learners, self-nurturers, to connect them with the outdoors. It's got fiction and nonfiction. It's got activities. It's really about getting girls outside and away from the TV and away from I like a twirly skirt as much as anyone else, but I also like to get out and dig in the dirt, and we built a tree house, and that's in here, and just kind of hoping to offer another choice, just sort of 8 to 12. If you don't catch the girls in that age range, they tend to float. I certainly floated, you know, at that time, and I watched my daughter's friends kind of, if they're not grounded, and just sort of hopefully a step in the right direction for, you know, giving girls an alternative to MTV. Not that I have anything against MTV. And
but now you tie this into a website too as well.
There's a website that's right now. It's mostly for the benefit of marketing the books at this point, because they just came out at the end of December, and they're just sort of going out now. And there's a club that the girls can join. They can accumulate mileage if they keep track of walking to school or riding their bike, and they accumulate 100 miles. They can send me their form, and I'll send them back a badge that says 100 miles. So it's kind of encouraging them to just be active and make other choices, because otherwise you get into high school and you don't know how to make good choices, and you just feel limited, and so when it's a lot of fun, and it's been well received, and so hopefully it goes out there in the world and does good things, which would be nice.
Oh, great. Well, that's what it's all about. I mean,
there are pictures of your treehouse in there?
There are pictures of my treehouse. I don't know if you can see them, but I will happily
You're an
open the
architect
book.
I can attest they're lovely.
No. I
treehouse.
didn't. My daughter happened to be working at a theater camp in which she had a friend who builds treehouses for a living. And I happen to have some property. There's the girls building the treehouse, and the final one is in here somewhere. And it's in my backyard in Kittery, and that's
great.
That's the final
that
house.
It's nice to let girls know they have options.
Yeah, and mothers and fathers everywhere, I'm sure, will be cursing me when their daughters come home and go, "It's our turn to build a treehouse. I want to get up there and do that." But yeah.
Well, how many books have you written total?
Somewhere around 40, I think.
Wow.
I've been doing this for a long time, since I did my first book when I was 19.
Oh, wow.
I was working for my father before that, and I took a little break to go into the restaurant business. And
you were smart and you got out.
What I thought was that I will waitress at night and I will do artwork during the day, but that did not happen. And 7 or 8 years later, I said, okay. I ended up as a bartender. I was a cook for a while, and that was, you know, so then I went back to illustrating when my daughter was born, so I've been doing it steadily for 20 years.
That's great.
Did the style of the books that you produce change through the years?
This Adventure Girls is very different from the simple graphic stuff, because there's a mix. There's photographs, there's 3-dimensional things. Publishers like to kind of keep you in a block of what you do. They want you to have a look, and it was hard to branch out from that. But I've always done concept books. I'm really a designer. I'm best at the really simple things, and So I've done some picture books, some concept books, an activity book, and then I started on the board books. The bilingual books actually started with a series of 4 picture books. That was the first 4. So they're not exactly a story, but they're sentences. They're larger. There's 15 or 20 things on each page.
Right.
They're not available in hardcover anymore. And then there's another one, Pinata, which is out now. That's a hardcover and about putting different items in English and Spanish into a pinata. And there's instructions in the back on how to make one. And that's a good classroom.
Well, it's actually a great thing.
So.
You know, when we think about giving them to people who speak Spanish, but they're also a great book to give to somebody who just speaks English.
Absolutely.
Because then you can learn a little bit about Spanish.
And I intended them for children, but I have hundreds of people tell me that adults use them. Oddly enough, there was when I first brought them out, there was an influx of people in California buying them. One of the books was called My House, and they were buying it in order to speak to their domestic help.
Right.
And so the adults were using them and adults still use them. So,
Well, I mean, immigration is one of the hottest topics out there. And, really, when you think about it, from the restaurant industry, our industry could not survive without people, Hispanic people who want to work.
Right.
And it's something that obviously, these books can help because to get assimilated. I mean, my grandparents came from Ireland, but my wife's grandparents came from Italy, and when they came here, they spoke Italian. And just to assimilate into the culture, it's a tough thing. We don't speak the language.
It is, and so adults, kids, it's all a good thing, and it's nice for Americans to stretch themselves as well, or English-speaking Americans, I should say, to stretch themselves as well, and perhaps think about taking a look at someone else's language and not just English as the premier language.
Well,
in most countries, my daughter's at Berkeley in Boston, and it's a huge amount of international students, and most of them speak 2, if not 3 languages, and it's only American students that speak only English. So
it's very true.
It's nice to be diverse and to learn something new. It's always good to learn something new.
So now, where will you be reading tomorrow?
I have no idea.
Mount Kisco Library.
Mount Kisco.
I'll be doing it at the library, but I'm also I think some schools. But
yes, and at Neighbors Link.
And Neighbors
We'll
Link.
be there.
I don't have the schedule.
It's a whirlwind tour.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
It actually
Charlie's
is
got
very
things planned out for you tomorrow. He's
very
got
luxurious, picking me up at the airport, and I get to stay in a nice place and have a nice dinner tonight and meet a bunch of people from
Well,
from
we're
here
very pleased that you're here because I think it just builds on it and the importance of what we're really trying to do, and I think it gives a real focus. And we're very pleased with your books. They were great.
Yeah, I mean, again, through Pleasantville Rotary anyway, we not only have this project that's going on, we also do down at Cedar Knolls, which is Hawthorne Cedar Knolls, which is a school for kind of emotionally disabled kids. We go down, Rotarians go down once or twice a week, and what we've done is, again, partnered with Mayapack National, we're building a kind of a library on a cart. One classroom was chosen for us. We go down and we read a book. We talk about the book, and the books are integrated into their curriculum. We read the book and have a discussion with the kids about the book, and the book goes onto the cart. The kids can revisit the book, or the book can go around to different classrooms. And it's really, well, I was down there twice, and the kids have a great time, and they're really attentive. They ask you questions about the book, and they even...
Books are great.
Oh, the book, that's...
I mean, readers make lifelong learners.
Yep.
So because you may or you may not have an opportunity for higher education, but if you're a reader, and I was a voracious reader as a child, I was the only kid in my class that had a blank check for the Scholastic Book Fair. But lifetime...
And you only used it there, right?
Yeah. I remember my 2nd grade teacher calling my mother and saying, "Do you know she has a blank check for this?" And my mother said, "Just let her get whatever she wants, however many books she wants." But and I raised my daughter that way too. She wasn't quite the memorize and regurgitate kind of student, and we actually homeschooled for high school, and she had tutors and different stuff, and I made sure that I fostered in her that she's a lifetime learner, that you never stop learning, and readers, if you start them, a reader will never lack for an opportunity to learn and to help themselves be more well-rounded and self-sufficient.
And they're never bored.
No, readers, I'm never
bored.
There's never enough time to read all the really good books in the world, and it's in a world full of electronics and whiz-bang
easy stuff, right? The push-button
making
stuff.
sure that literature is still out there so that writers get to write and illustrators get to illustrate and people get to read. Really keeps your brain, from flatlining.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky too. Both my daughter and son like to read. And it's something I think that, because Kathy and I like to read. And, you know, instead of sitting there on a Sunday afternoon and popping on the TV, we tend to sit down and read everything from the newspaper to magazines to books. And it's a thing that my mother did for us too.
Well, you can get with a book like this a sense of fun early on, and that it's not it's not something you have to do because you have to do it at school. You do it because you want to.
It's not tedious, right?
And if you can break that mold, I think you really can succeed.
Promoting books is something that is good rather than something that you have to do or have to read. And you know, if you can make it cool, you know, you're all set.
So now, I mean, these books are pretty much out in print now. People can pick them up at a bookstore, or
I understand they're sold out here.
Yeah.
But they're
see how popular you are.
No, the people were buying them to come to the signing, I guess. But the board books and some of the other picture books and Pinata, they're available at all your major trade stores. Adventure Girls is available in some. I'm only dealing with independent bookstores and museums and charities. They can go to the website, which is www.adventuregirlbooks.com, and they can order them there. And so everything's available.
Great. Well, it sounds like you've been busy.
I have been very busy. Very busy.
I think we're going to let you go and freshen up and get some dinner.
Cool.
But we really, you know, are happy you're down here to help us out.
I'm happy to be here. It's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to, if someone wants to give my books away, then it's a privilege to be here to help kids get that done.
And thanks again to May Impact National.
Our pleasure, really.
It's really something. And to all you Rotarians out there and non-Rotarians.
What is a Rotarian?
Actually, what a Rotarian is, my kids ask me this question.
I don't know what a Rotarian is.
It's a state of mind.
State of mind. Well, the motto is service above self. And really, on the simplest level, like I always say this, when I first joined about 8 years ago, and my children said to me, what do Rotarians do? And really what we do is we raise money, and then we give it away. Then we raise some more money, and we give it away. So by the end of our fiscal year, we have a zero balance and go out and have to raise more money to give more money away. And really, a lot of it on a local level, kind of like what we're doing here. International level, we're doing a lunchbox program in South Africa where we're raising funds and getting matching grants to feed students. And because we feel if we can feed students in school, they'll stay in school. They don't have to go out and get jobs to sustain themselves. You know, it sounds simple, but it's a big job.
Sounds like a good thing.
It is a good thing.
The Rotary.
Well, we try. But thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and
nice
enjoy your signings tomorrow. And Charlie, thank you. And thank you all very much for watching.